Good evening. My name's Wayne.
For decades, a sprawling Newport Beach mansion hid John Wayne's most guarded secrets. When he passed away in 1979, the house was sealed instantly, every photograph, letter, and personal belonging locked away for more than 30 years. But in 2011, the doors finally creaked open, and what they found inside left everyone speechless. From jaw-dropping Hollywood memorabilia to a will so controversial it ripped his family apart, this is the untold story of what really happened to the Duke's fortune. John Wayne, originally born Marion Robert Morrison on May 26, 1907, in Winterset, Iowa, made headlines the moment he entered the world, literally. At a whopping 13 pounds, his birth was so shocking that the local newspaper wrote about it. From the very beginning, he was larger than life. At just 3 years old, he nearly died after falling into a freezing creek. A passing stranger saved him, and that brush with death foreshadowed the grit and resilience that would define his legendary career. Even his name wasn't set in stone. When his parents had another son, they took back Robert and gave it to the new baby. Marion's middle name wasn't just switched. It was erased and replaced with Mitchell. A small change on paper, but a sign of the major transformations ahead. In 1914, his family packed up and moved to Glendale, California after his father's business collapsed. There, Marion earned a name that would follow him for life, Duke. But it wasn't his idea. The nickname actually came from his loyal Airedale Terrier, also named Duke. Since they were always together, local firefighters started calling them Big Duke and Little Duke, and Marion liked it so much, the name stuck for good. Growing up, Duke was all about football. In 1925, he scored a football scholarship to the University of Southern California, where he studied pre-law and joined the Sigma Chi fraternity. But fate had other plans. A brutal body surfing accident wrecked his shoulder, shattering his dreams on the field. Losing the scholarship felt like the end, but in reality, it was just the beginning. That injury pushed him straight toward Hollywood. By 1927, he was working at Fox Studios, completely unaware that he was on the verge of becoming a legend. Wayne's start in Hollywood was anything but glamorous. He worked as a prop man, hauling set pieces for just $35 a week. It wasn't much, but it got his foot in the door. His first time on screen? Not as a star, not even as an extra with a line, just a background football player in the 1926 film Brown of Harvard, completely uncredited. During this grind, he caught the eye of director John Ford, who saw something special in him. Ford took him under his wing, offering advice and even suggesting he ditch his birth name for something with more punch. After tossing around a few ideas, they landed on John Wayne, a name that would soon be etched into Hollywood history. But getting there wasn't easy. Between 1930 and 1939, Wayne starred in over 80 low-budget westerns, sometimes filming entire movies in just 2 days. The pay was dismal, so bad that he often survived on just one meal a day, heating up a can of beans on a hot plate. By 1938, after years of grinding with little success, he was ready to call it quits. Then came Stagecoach in 1939, the film that changed everything. But even that wasn't an easy win. The studio wanted a big name like Gary Cooper, and Wayne wasn't even on their radar. But John Ford refused to back down. He insisted on Wayne, even threatening to walk away from the project if they didn't agree. In Stagecoach, Wayne brought the Ringo Kid to life, an outlaw with a tough exterior but an unshakable sense of justice. His first appearance? Pure cinematic gold. The camera zoomed in as he spun his rifle, locking eyes with the audience. It lasted just seconds, but filming it was a nightmare. Wayne was so nervous it took 27 takes to get it right. Despite the struggle, the payoff was massive. Stagecoach became a smash hit, scoring 7 Academy Award nominations and taking home 2 trophies. And Wayne? Practically an overnight sensation. But fame didn't come with a fat paycheck. He earned just $3,700 for the role, a fraction of what Hollywood's top stars were making. Still, the movie launched him into legend status. From that moment on, Wayne became the face of the Western. He was so dedicated to his image that he refused roles in classics like The Maltese Falcon and High Noon. He had no interest in stepping away from his tough, all-American persona. That choice cemented his legacy as the ultimate symbol of strength and masculinity. Wayne's bond with director John Ford only grew stronger. The two worked together for over 50 years, creating 14 films that reshaped Hollywood. Their journey started humbly in 1928, when Ford gave Wayne a blink-and-you'll-miss-it extra role in Mother McCree. But the real turning point? Stagecoach in 1939, the film that changed everything. Stagecoach didn't just make Wayne famous, it made him a star. But behind the scenes, his relationship with John Ford was anything but easy. Ford was notoriously tough on his actors, and Wayne often bore the brunt of it. On the set of The Searchers, 1956, Ford humiliated him in front of the entire crew, forcing him to redo a ridiculously simple scene, just picking up a gun 17 times. Wayne could have fought back, but he never did. He believed Ford's brutal methods pushed him to deliver his best performances. Ironically, The Searchers was completely ignored by the Oscars when it was released, but today, it's hailed as one of the greatest films of all time. By 1963, their partnership was nearing its end. Their last film together, Donovan's Reef, almost didn't happen. Wayne felt too old for the role, and Ford wasn't much better. His health was failing, and his drinking had taken a serious toll. But Wayne refused to let the project die. He convinced Ford to direct, and they headed to Hawaii for filming, only to face unbearable heat that soared past 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Things got so bad that Ford developed a severe case of shingles, forcing him to direct some scenes while lying on a stretcher. Despite every setback, they powered through, finished the film, and managed to pull off a solid box office run. Unlike their usual hard-hitting westerns, Donovan's Reef took a different route: comedy. Even near the end of their careers, Wayne and Ford proved they could still switch things up and deliver something fresh. Wayne's first shot at Oscar glory came in 1949 with Sands of Iwo Jima, where he played the tough-as-nails Marine, Sergeant John Stryker. But here's the twist: he almost turned it down. He thought the role was too similar to the characters he had already played. It took Herbert Yates, the president of Republic Pictures, to personally step in and persuade him. Yates didn't just ask. He offered Wayne a massive paycheck of $250,000 plus a cut of the profits, an offer too good to refuse. The filming process? Brutal. Director Alan Dwan wanted the battle scenes to feel real, so he went all out, using actual flamethrowers and live explosives. It got so intense that people were injured on set, and in one terrifying moment, an explosion knocked Wayne unconscious for a full 30 minutes. Production had to shut down for 2 days just so he could recover. But the realism didn't stop there. The U.S. Marine Corps granted the filmmakers access to rare combat footage straight from the actual Battle of Iwo Jima. The editing was so seamless that audiences couldn't tell where Hollywood ended and history began. One of the most iconic moments, the flag raising on Mount Suribachi, shot using the original flag from the legendary battle itself. 3 of the surviving Marines who raised that flag even made cameo appearances in the film, blurring the line between history and Hollywood even further. But despite the movie's success and Wayne's commanding performance, he still didn't take home the Oscar. The award went to Broderick Crawford for All the King's Men, a twist of fate that stung even more when you realize Wayne had turned down the lead role in that very film. His reason? He believed the story was un-American. Losing that Oscar hit him hard. It would take 11 more years before he got another nomination, and this time, he was determined to win. But before that, Wayne took the biggest gamble of his career, his passion project, the Alamo, 1960. He had dreamed of making this film for over 15 years, and when studios wouldn't finance it, he bet everything on it. He mortgaged his house, cars, and even his boat to make it happen. The budget? A jaw-dropping $12 million, one of the biggest of its time. Wayne didn't just want a movie, he wanted history brought to life. He demanded a full-scale replica of the Alamo be built in Texas. The result? A 2-year construction project that used over 1.5 million adobe bricks to create a perfectly accurate 1830s-era fort. Even the nails were historically precise. The set was so incredible, it became a tourist attraction and remained open until 2009. Filming the Alamo was an epic challenge. They needed 7,000 extras, 1,500 horses, and a grueling 79-day shoot under the scorching Texas sun, where temperatures soared to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Every second of it was a battle, but Wayne refused to back down. Filming the Alamo wasn't just exhausting, it was dangerous. Accidents were inevitable, and in one brutal scene, an extra got stabbed with a bayonet, needing 26 stitches. But Wayne, he refused to cut corners. He wanted everything to be as real as possible, no matter the risks. When the movie finally premiered, it was huge, a full parade, fireworks. Hollywood pulled out all the stops. It earned 7 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. But critics were split, and the box office couldn't cover the massive costs. To make matters worse, Wayne wasn't even nominated for Best Director. That crushed him. He had risked everything for this film, and the snub stung. Still, the Alamo left a lasting legacy, shaping how generations remembered the legendary battle. Then finally, redemption. In 1970, Wayne won his first and only Oscar for True Grit. He played Rooster Cogburn, a gruff, one-eyed U.S. Marshal, a role that almost slipped through his fingers. At first, he thought he was too old and was still recovering from lung cancer surgery. But after reading the novel, he realized this was the role of a lifetime. Filming, however, was brutal. Shot in the icy wilderness of Colorado, the freezing temperatures and high altitude wrecked Wayne's health. Between takes, he had to rely on an oxygen tank just to keep going. And then came the moment that nearly ended it all. His horse stumbled on a steep hill, nearly throwing him off a deadly drop. Wayne pushed through every challenge. Even after tearing a muscle in his shoulder, he refused to stop. To fully transform into Rooster Cogburn, he gained weight and wore an eye patch that completely messed with his vision. It was so disorienting that he had to memorize the entire set just to avoid bumping into things. But it paid off. His performance was unlike anything he had ever done before, and audiences loved it. The film raked in over $31 million, becoming one of the biggest hits of his career. Then came the moment he had waited decades for, the Oscars. When Wayne took the stage to accept his first and only Academy Award, he delivered a now famous line. "If I'd known this, I'd have put that patch on 35 years earlier, what most people didn't know." He had the flu that night but refused to miss his moment. Of course, some critics claimed the Oscar was more of a Lifetime Achievement Award than a win for True Grit. Even Wayne later admitted it felt like Hollywood was honoring his entire career rather than just the role. But it didn't matter. Rooster Cogburn became one of his most legendary characters, and the film's massive success cemented his place as one of the greatest movie stars of all time. Beyond the silver screen, Wayne's personal life was just as dramatic. Over nearly 50 years, he went through 3 marriages, each filled with its own ups and downs. His first wife, Josephine Sayans, married him in 1933, right as his career was just beginning to take off. Wayne and Josephine had 4 children together, but his skyrocketing fame kept him away from home constantly. The real trouble started in 1938 when Wayne began a secret affair with Hollywood icon Marlene Dietrich. He tried to salvage his marriage, even taking Josephine to Mexico in 1943 for a fresh start. But it was too late. The damage was done, and by 1945, they were officially divorced. His second marriage? Pure chaos. In 1946, he tied the knot with Esperanza Bauer, a fiery former actress from Mexico. Their relationship was tumultuous from the start, fueled by Esperanza's intense jealousy. She convinced herself that Wayne was having an affair with his Angel and the Bad Man, 1947 co-star Gail Russell, and things spiraled out of control. One night after Wayne came home late from a party, Esperanza snapped. Drunk and furious, she grabbed a gun and fired at him the moment he walked through the door. Miraculously, no one was hurt, but their marriage was doomed. They finally called it quits in 1954. That same year, Wayne married for the third and final time. His relationship with Pilar Palete lasted until the very end. They remained together until his death in 1979. Wayne and Pilar had 3 children together, and for a while their marriage seemed steady. But by 1973, cracks started to show, and they separated. Instead of going through a divorce, Wayne moved in with his secretary, Pat Stacy, and the two lived together. Despite their split, Wayne and Pilar never officially ended their marriage. His relationship with Marlene Dietrich, however, was far from a secret. Their passionate affair kicked off in 1938 while filming Seven Sinners and stretched on for nearly a decade. At the time, Wayne was still married to Josephine, but that didn't stop him from spending countless nights at Dietrich's house. Their connection wasn't just physical, they poured their hearts out in love letters, openly sharing their deepest feelings. And Dietrich? She wasn't just a lover. She was a powerful ally. She used her Hollywood influence to push Wayne into leading roles in movies like The Spoilers and Pittsburgh, 1942. Though their romantic relationship ended in 1947, their bond never faded. They remained lifelong friends, and Dietrich often admitted that Wayne was the love of her life. But if there was one relationship that had everyone talking, it was Wayne's legendary friendship with Maureen O'Hara. Wayne and Maureen O'Hara shared the screen 5 times, starting with Rio Grande in 1950. But their most iconic film, The Quiet Man, 1952. Their on-screen chemistry was so electric that fans were convinced they were a real-life couple. O'Hara even laughed about an old woman on the street who mistook her for Wayne's actual wife. But their bond wasn't just for the cameras. Wayne's own kids called her Auntie Maureen, proving just how close she was to the family. For years, people speculated about whether their connection went beyond friendship. And then years later, O'Hara's own grandson confirmed it. Wayne and O'Hara did have a brief romance, but he admitted it never could have lasted. They were both just too strong-willed. Even so, O'Hara never left his side. When Wayne was dying of cancer, she fought to make sure he was honored with a congressional medal, ensuring his legendary status would live on. In his final years, Wayne found comfort with Pat Stacy, his secretary-turned-partner. After his separation from Pilar, Pat became his rock. Despite their 34-year age gap, they shared a deep connection. Pat wasn't just a companion, she was his caregiver, standing by him through grueling cancer treatments, managing his life, and making sure he had all the support he needed. From 1973 until his death in 1979, she never left his side. After Wayne's passing, Pat Stacy shared their story with the world. In 1983, she published Duke, a love story, a book that revealed a softer, more vulnerable side of Wayne that fans rarely got to see. She never remarried, dedicating the rest of her life to keeping his memory alive. Pat passed away in 1995, but her love for Wayne never faded. Back in 1964, Wayne faced the biggest fight of his life. At 57 years old, doctors gave him devastating news. He had lung cancer. It was shocking, but not exactly surprising. For years, Wayne had been a heavy smoker, burning through 6 packs of cigarettes every single day. The only way to save his life? A high-risk surgery to remove his left lung and 2 ribs. His survival odds? A terrifying 50%. But in true Wayne fashion, he beat the odds and lived cancer-free for the next 5 years. Most people would have kept such a brutal diagnosis private, but not Wayne. His advisors begged him to stay quiet, warning it could hurt his career. But Wayne didn't care. He wanted to help others, urging people to get screened before it was too late. He even gave cancer a nickname, calling it the Big C. hoping the term would make it feel less terrifying. In 1965, just a year after his life-saving surgery, Wayne did something rare for a Hollywood legend. He appeared in a TV commercial for the American Cancer Society. He urged people to support cancer research and take the disease seriously, but cancer wasn't done with him yet. By 1979, Wayne faced an even deadlier diagnosis: stomach cancer. Desperate for a cure, he tried an experimental vaccine, but it wasn't enough. Even as his health deteriorated, he refused to stay silent. From his hospital bed, he recorded powerful messages, pleading for more funding to fight cancer. Just weeks before his death, he made one final plea to the public. "They might find a cure for cancer without your help, but I wouldn't bet my life on it." Wayne's final film was The Shootist, 1976, a role that felt eerily close to home. He played an aging gunfighter dying of cancer, a character that mirrored his own reality. He was 68 years old during filming, and his health was failing. He needed oxygen between scenes, but that didn't stop him from pushing through. Wayne insisted on doing his own stunts, even the brutal ones. In one grueling scene, he had to fall onto a hard floor multiple times. Not once did he complain. He was John Wayne until the very end. The Shootist wasn't just another movie, it was John Wayne's farewell to Hollywood. Audiences saw it as his final goodbye, and Wayne made sure it reflected his legacy. He even changed the ending. In the original script, his character was shot in the back, but Wayne flat out refused. "I've never shot a man in the back in any movie. Change it." And they did. The film earned $13.4 million and gave Wayne a perfect send-off, a role that mirrored his own courage in the face of death. Then, on June 11, 1979, Wayne's fight came to an end. He passed away at 72 years old, losing his battle with stomach cancer at UCLA Medical Center. His death sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. President Jimmy Carter called him bigger than life and a true American hero. Thousands of fans gathered outside the hospital and his home, leaving flowers, letters, and even cowboy hats in his honor. His Hollywood Walk of Fame star became a shrine where people lit candles and paid their respects. Wayne's funeral was private, but later a public memorial was held so fans could say their final goodbye. It was broadcast on television, with millions tuning in to honor him. And in a fitting tribute, the U.S. Naval Academy made him an honorary member of their class of 1979, a powerful recognition, even though he had never served in the military. Even after his passing, John Wayne's legacy only grew. To honor him, Orange County Airport was renamed John Wayne Airport, a lasting tribute to the impact he had on millions. But his most meaningful legacy, the John Wayne Cancer Foundation. Founded by his family in 1985, it was created to continue his fight against cancer and make sure his name would always stand for courage and strength. The foundation helped establish the John Wayne Cancer Institute, which became a leader in groundbreaking research. One of its biggest achievements? Developing early cancer detection methods that have saved countless lives. At the time of his death in 1979, Wayne's estate was valued at $6.85 million, around $25 million today. But for a man who was one of the highest-paid actors of his time, many expected his fortune to be much larger. So what happened? Either Wayne spent lavishly, was extraordinarily generous, or had assets that weren't included in the estate. The true value of his fortune? That remains a mystery. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding Wayne's fortune? The sale of his beloved yacht, Wild Goose. Originally a World War II minesweeper, this wasn't just any boat. It was his sanctuary. He spent countless days aboard, yet just before his death, he sold it for $750,000. Why? No one really knows, but it only adds to the mystery of how much he truly left behind. Beyond the water, Wayne had a deep love for real estate. His Newport Beach home was one of his most iconic properties. He bought it in 1965 and lived there until his passing in 1979. Sitting right on the water and facing Balboa Island, the house looked modest from the street. But inside, It was grand and luxurious, just like Wayne's larger-than-life personality. After his death, the house sold for $5.5 million in 1980, a massive price for the time. Before moving to Newport Beach, Wayne owned a 5-acre ranch in Encino. At 58 years old, he traded ranch life for the peaceful waterfront. But his real estate empire didn't stop there. He also owned properties in Arizona and Washington, showing both his love for different landscapes and his sharp eye for investments. Wayne once joked that moving to Newport Beach years earlier had been the smartest decision he ever made, because by then, I sure as hell couldn't afford it. When John Wayne's will was made public after his 1979 death, it sent shockwaves through his family. The biggest surprise? He left nothing to his third wife, Pilar Palete. They had been married for over 20 years but had separated in 1973, 6 years before he passed. Despite never divorcing, Wayne excluded her entirely, choosing to leave most of his estate to his 7 children from his first 2 marriages. This decision sparked endless speculation. Why was Pilar shut out? Was their relationship worse than people thought? But the drama didn't end there. In 2010, Wayne's daughter, Isa, took her brother Ethan and John Wayne Enterprises to court, fighting over her share in the company. Even the personal keepsakes Wayne left his children became battlegrounds. Fights over memorabilia fueled family tensions, proving that dividing his fortune only created lasting rifts. Then, in 2011, something huge happened for John Wayne fans. Over 700 pieces of his life and career hit the auction block. The event took place on October 6th and 7th at the Hyatt Century Plaza in Los Angeles, drawing collectors and fans from around the world. Fans and collectors were given a once-in-a-lifetime chance to own pieces of John Wayne's personal life and legendary career. Many of these items had been locked away since his passing in 1979. The day he died, his entire house was sealed and everything he owned was sent to storage. It was like opening a time capsule more than 30 years later. The auction featured an incredible variety of items: costumes, props, awards, even furniture from his home. But some pieces were especially fascinating. For example, Wayne's movie scripts offered a rare look into his process. His script for The Horse Soldiers had folded pages, marking finished scenes. Others, like Wednesday Morning, were kept neatly organized, showing just how methodical he was. Then there were the deeply personal items: books, clothing, even his last driver's license. A collection of his signature colorful neckerchiefs, which he loved to wear, sold for a whopping $10,755. Some pieces shattered records. His iconic green beret from the Green Berets, 1968, sold for an astonishing $179,250, setting a new record for a costume hat. Fans jumped at the chance to own it. It wasn't just a hat, it was a symbol of one of his most famous films. Another massive seller, Wayne's cowboy hat, worn in classics like Big Jake and the Cowboys. It fetched a staggering $119,500. His Golden Globe for True Grit also sparked a bidding war, selling for $143,400. This award was especially valuable. It was tied to his only Oscar-winning role, making it a true piece of Hollywood history. But it wasn't just the big-ticket items that shocked people. Even his everyday belongings sold for huge amounts. His last driver's license, something completely ordinary, went for $89,625, setting a record for a driver's license. His True Grit eye patch? $47,800. Even pieces of clothing like his pants from the Alamo and a well-worn movie shirt sold for thousands. For fans, these items were more than collectibles. They were connections to the man himself. The auction didn't just highlight his movie career, it revealed who John Wayne really was. One especially touching item? A gold-plated Winchester rifle he had personally gifted to his friend, Bob Shelton. It sold for $13,315, showing Wayne's deeply generous side. His book collection also gave a glimpse into his mind. He was drawn to history, military strategy, and the stories of great leaders, proving that even off-screen, Wayne embodied the toughness and intelligence he was known for. One of the most surprising auction items, Wayne's personal collection of seashells. It revealed a softer, more private side of him, one that fans rarely got to see. But the big money went to a stunning portrait of Wayne by artist John Decker, which sold for $71,700. The fact that Wayne kept it in his home for years showed just how much it meant to him. More than just a legend, John Wayne was a father, a friend, and a man deeply connected to the people he loved. But not everything in Wayne's past was celebrated. In 1971, he gave an infamous interview to Playboy magazine, one that sparked outrage and is still widely discussed today. He made shocking comments that exposed his controversial views. The most infamous quote, "I believe in white supremacy until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility." At the time, Wayne was 63 years old and one of the biggest stars in the world. But this wasn't an isolated incident. He had expressed similar beliefs before. In the same interview, Wayne didn't just make one controversial statement, he doubled down on several. He spoke about Native Americans, saying he didn't believe it was wrong to take their land, calling it a matter of survival. He also attacked the movie Midnight Cowboy, calling it perverted and using a homophobic slur. For decades, these comments were mostly forgotten. But in February 2019, everything changed. Someone shared excerpts from the interview on Twitter, reigniting massive outrage. A screenwriter called Wayne a terrible person, and the tweet exploded, going viral. Suddenly, the world was debating his legacy all over again. Some people wanted him canceled, while others argued that one interview shouldn't erase his entire career. But one thing was clear. Even decades after his death, Wayne's words still had power. The controversy sparked major discussions about accountability, history, and how public figures should be remembered. And it didn't stop at social media. People started questioning places named after him, most notably John Wayne Airport in Orange County, California. The airport had carried his name since 1979, honoring his Hollywood legacy. But by 2020, during the nationwide protests following George Floyd's murder, the calls for change grew louder. Many demanded the airport be renamed, arguing that Wayne's legacy needed to be re-examined. On June 26, 2020, the local Democratic Party made an official request to remove John Wayne's name from Orange County Airport. Their argument? His past statements clashed with the county's values of diversity and inclusion. This wasn't just about Wayne. The political landscape of Orange County had shifted drastically. Once a deeply conservative area, it had become more diverse and politically competitive. In 2018, Democrats flipped every congressional seat in the county, a historic shift. For some, keeping Wayne's name on the airport felt like a slap in the face to minority communities. Others, however, fiercely defended him. His son, Ethan Wayne, pushed back, denying that his father was racist. He argued that Wayne's legacy was being unfairly attacked, and that his true character was being twisted by modern debates. As of 2025, the airport still carries John Wayne's name, but the debate hasn't died down. It remains a prime example of the ongoing struggle over how to handle the legacies of controversial figures. And the controversy didn't stop there. Wayne's connection to the University of Southern California, USC, also came under scrutiny. In July 2020, USC made a major decision. They removed an exhibit dedicated to Wayne from the School of Cinematic Arts. The exhibit, installed in 2012, featured movie posters, memorabilia, and personal items honoring Wayne as one of USC's most famous alumni. But in the wake of renewed backlash, the university decided it was time to reconsider how it honored his legacy. By late 2019, students and alumni at USC began protesting the John Wayne exhibit. Their argument? His racist comments made the display feel unwelcoming, especially for students of color. After months of discussions, the university made its decision. The exhibit had to go. Their reasoning? They wanted to promote anti-racism and create a more inclusive environment. The decision divided people. Some saw it as a necessary step toward accountability, while others believed it was wrong to erase history. But this controversy sparked a much bigger question. Can you separate an artist's work from their personal beliefs? Many fans argue that Wayne's films like The Searchers and Rio Bravo are too important to ignore. They believe you can still appreciate his movies while condemning his problematic views. But critics push back, saying Wayne's racist comments, combined with the stereotypes in his films, make it impossible to separate the man from the art. They also highlight a deeper issue. Wayne's movies often glorified a sanitized version of American history that ignored the brutal violence against Native Americans. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.